Hello you lot, Miller Corner here and welcome back to Super Seicento. That's right, we're back doing videos with this little nugget. And you may remember, if you've been watching this channel for a while, back when this car was still in its old HX02 shell, we did an engine swap. We transferred it from its standard 1108cc engine to a 1242, a 1.2 litre Punto 60 engine. But that wasn't quite as simple as it seemed, because I was sold a whole engine on the basis that it would go straight into this car. It turned out to not, because that engine was a single point injection engine, this is a multi-point injection car, and that meant it didn't fit. The wiring and so on wasn't compatible. So we took the 1242 head off that engine and put my 1108 head on there. We will get it to run, and it is still more powerful, more torquey, it's still an improvement. But the whole time it's been a little bit restricted, because a 1242 head has got bigger inlet and exhaust valves, it's a bit revier, and it will genuinely give you a bit more power and torque. So back when I was still looking to turbocharge this car, I thought we need to make the engine as suitable for as much power with boost as possible. So I got my hands on a 1242 head to swap it over. But it's worth noting that most of what you're about to see is back when I was still planning to turbo this car. So there are some of the things we're doing to it that if you're not planning to turbo your car, you don't necessarily need to. But nonetheless, after years down the line, it's finally time to fully complete the 1242 big block swap. This is a head. Now, I did pay for this, I wasn't given it, and you should always pay for heads when you receive them. And this is actually a 1242 MPI Fiat Punto head, which is largely the same as the 1108 Seicento head that I've got on my existing engine, but it's got bigger inlet and exhaust valves on the 1242, which is better for more power. Now, this one I've given a thorough going over. I've cleaned and degreased the entire thing with brake cleaner and brushes and all sorts of bits and pieces. I've cleaned in the valleys in there, which wasn't full of black death, thankfully, but I've still given it a damn good clean. I've even cleaned up here all around the head casting, and then I've wet sanded all the mating surfaces. So all the ports here for the inlet and exhaust manifolds, the mating surface here for the cam cover, and underneath the actual deck, which meets the block of the engine, that's all been wet sanded, silky smooth, so it seals properly and doesn't leak anything. It's then had new valve stem oil seals, because it's far easier to do this when the head is off the engine, so you know there won't be any problems when it goes back together. Then I cleaned all the carbon off of the heads of the valves, and I re-lapped all the valves, which you'll be able to see if you follow me on Twitter, which was actually quite good fun. It's proper old school engine tinkering stuff. Love doing that. Then I fitted a new thermostat and thermostat housing, and it's also had a new camshaft oil seal, which is a fairly common problem for oil leaks on fire engines. My brother's car's had it, my current head has had it, but hopefully this one won't. So we've got a 1242 head, fresh and fruity, thoroughly cleaned up, and that alone is going to help for more power. And what's more, we've got some bits. So here we've got a new cam cover gasket to stop that leaking anything. We've got a new set of fresh head bolts, because always put new head bolts in, don't ever reuse them. And speaking of head bolts, there's a new head gasket. Now, I could have just put in a standard Seicento or Punto one, but I wanted to go one better. This is actually a multi-layer steel head gasket from, I believe, a petrol engine Doblo. Now, I'm going to leave the model number on screen now. This is a Victor Rines one. You can also get a pay-in one, I believe. And the benefits of a steel head gasket, particularly if you're going to be boosting an engine like I am, first of all, it is tougher. It's more resistant to higher pressures inside the engine, so it hopefully won't blow under boost pressure. It's also resistant to higher temperatures, so it's less likely to blow. And because it's steel, it's minutely, I mean tenths of a millimetre, going to drop the compression a little bit, which is always good when you're adding boost. Now, if you're going to go for massive 300 horsepower, break the internet style builds, this isn't really the solution. But for the kind of power level, kind of boost I'm going to be running, this will do the job. And it's an off-the-shelf factory part that was about 20 quid. The next step is spark plugs. Now, I've got some lovely new NGKs, and they are BCPR7ES plugs. These are not standard Punto or Seicento ones. They're actually one heat range colder, indicated by the 7, because I believe it's normally a 6. That's because for every 75 to 100 horsepower you're hoping to tune out of your engine, whether it's naturally aspirated or particularly turbocharged, you should go one heat range colder to keep the heat down inside your engine. So that's our lovely new 1242 head that's all been completely cleaned and freshened up with a host of lovely new parts that are going to make it run properly, not leak anything, and be better set up for boost. And to finish it all off, I thought I'd have a go at some engine bay cosmetics. Now, I've never been really big on prettying up your engine bay, because generally you only look at it when the bonnet's up, and I'd much rather have the bonnet down and be driving the car. But with the internals of the engine set up so nicely, I thought I'd try and make it look nice externally as well. I took inspiration from most B-series Hondas, which have got a wrinkle red rocker cover. Now, I bought some off-the-shelf wrinkle red paint, and I'm not entirely happy with the results, if I'm honest. You spray it on in 3 coats, 1 horizontal, 1 vertical, and then 1 diagonal. You then leave it for about 15 to 20 minutes to cure when it starts to wrinkle but looks a bit artificial, and then you apply some serious heat to it, either with the oven, which I was strictly forbidden from doing by my mum, or with a heat gun. Now, I was on this for about half an hour with the heat gun, and to be honest, the camera flatters it. It doesn't look particularly good. There are areas where it's kind of wrinkled up properly and some where it's hardly done it at all and it's gone a bit thin in places. Maybe I didn't do it properly, maybe the product's a bit crap, who's to say? But this does still look better than the faded, cracked black paint on my existing cam cover, so this will be going on the engine. So we've got the head, we've got all the accessories, we've got a slightly better looking cam cover, and without further ado, let's head to the workshop and fit it. With the car up on the lift, I start by removing the offside front wheel to access the cam belt. At least I would if the compressor had built up enough pressure to actually undo the wheel bolts. Eventually though, we're in business, and I get the wheel and arch liner off while Dad neatly drains the radiator. Then with the car lowered and the intake off, I remove the bolts securing the cam cover and store them in a magnetic parts tray that handily magnetises to the strut brace. The cam sensor joins them, then Dad removes the cam belt cover and I unbolt the exhaust manifold. Now, if only there was a perfect tool for the job. Yeah, you know those ratchet spanners that I bought you for Christmas last year? Yeah. You know how they'd have been absolutely perfect for this?
Why didn't you pick them up? I can't remember everything.
Struggling furiously without the ratchet spanners, I eventually get the exhaust manifold off, and then expertly film Dad slackening the alternator belt. The timing belt pulley comes off, and then the belt itself is wound round to the timing mark.
On the timing mark there, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Then up here, look, you see the edge of this casing and that white dot, that's got to line up. That's how you know
your timing belt's in the right place. Okay, cool.
Piston number 1 is top dead centre. It's as high as it will go on number 1, which is what we want. We've now got to undo the timing belt tensioner. That's the tensioner.
Oh!
It will be tight.
You don't say. Bloody hell.
The tensioner's on the back, so the front of the belt will be tight still, but the back won't.
Hey.
This is very old, is it?
Cam belt removed, the cam cover breather hose comes off, and then the wiring to the cam sensor and injectors is unplugged and carefully fed out of the way. The ignition leads are in the way, so we make a note of the order before unplugging and removing them. It's vital you keep the leads in the right order, otherwise the car's firing order will be wrong, and as much as the resulting noises will impress Fiesta ST owners, it doesn't impress me. The fuel feed to the rail is carefully removed, along with more wiring and breather hoses. It's worth taking some photos before you start unplugging and removing hoses and wires, so that the car actually runs when it all goes back together. After some light persuasion, the cam cover lifts off and the old head bolts can be cracked and undone, ready for the old head's removal. Oh, they're long, well. Right, that's all of them. Yep. We carefully lift the 1108 head off, freeing the Super Seicento of any trace of its original engine. There we go. How to get a head. The old head gasket peels off in pleasingly good condition, and we clean some muck out of the coolant channels. This is likely evidence of someone having run pure water instead of coolant at some stage. Clearing this will genuinely help with engine cooling as it allows coolant to pass through easier. The face of the block gets a gentle sanding with some 1500 grit and WD-40 before an airline blows any potential crud out of the way. Then it's time to prep the new head for fitting. Dad transfers over the coil pack while I remove the cam belt tensioner from both heads to swap them over. The one that came on the new head had run its course.
This is knackered.
That's haggard. The inlet manifold gets removed, greased up and bolted onto the new head, and then the brand new spark plugs are installed, and with the new head gasket lined up on the block, it's go time. We carry the 1242 head over to the car, and with it carefully lined up with the locating dowel on the block, slot it into place. The new head bolts are then started by hand before things get technical. The head bolts have a specific tightening order to keep it level and 3 different stages of tightening. The first sees them all torqued up to 22 pounds-feet or 30 Newton meters. Then an angle gauge is attached to the ratchet and the same tightening order followed twice more, winding the needle round from 0 to 90 degrees on each occasion. It pays to take your time with this job. Make sure your torque wrench and your angle gauge are set correctly. Do it too loose and your head isn't sealed and therefore mounted properly. Do it too tightly and you'll be shopping for a new engine to replace the one that you've cracked. After a fairly tense few minutes of thoroughly tightening the head bolts up to spec, the head is on. 90.
So that's our 180 degrees tightening.
And that is how you fit a cylinder head, apart from a few other bits. Those few other bits include the spider web of fuel, vacuum hoses and wiring. The cam then gets a drizzle of oil so it's not starting completely dry before the wrinkle red cam cover gets some sealant and a new gasket, then is fitted and bolted in place. That does not look too shabby. The cam cover breather hose and throttle cable are reattached, the intake fitted and tightened up, and with the exhaust manifold, cam belt, arch liner and wheel refitted, we feed it a gutful of coolant and then it's time to start it. First I crank it over a few times with the coil pack unplugged to prevent it starting but allow oil to circulate around the head.
Okay, ready? Yeah. Right, ignition off.
Coil pack reconnected, we're ready for the first start.
Okay, yeah, see what happens in ready? Yeah.
Right, straight up. It's alive! The engine sounds sweet and a quick check underneath reveals no leaks of fluids or exhaust gas. I'm now keen to get the car on the road and put some mileage on the new almighty big block engine. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Excellent. So there we have it then, a completed 1242 swap, just several years between the block and the head going in. And I can tell you that straight away it is an improvement. The car's a lot revvier, it's a lot more sprightly and it's a lot more keen to rev all the way out to the red light. It's a massive improvement. You're not going to get any driving impressions straight away though, because since we've done that, the car's also had a new exhaust done. Front to back, it's got a whole new exhaust system on it, and that's a separate upcoming video, so you get to see that being made and you get to hear it. And when that's done, I think we're due a driving impressions video. So there you have it, a completed 1242 swap, and I could not be happier. It's still a proper budget mod to do. If I was going to have my time again with this, I would buy a complete 1242 MPI engine for about 150 quid, because frankly it is a more cost-effective way than doing what I've done, which is block and head. But either way, it's not difficult, it's not expensive, and the results are well worth it for your Seicento. So on that note, thanks very much for watching everybody, and have a brilliant rest of your day. Catch you soon, and have a good one.